Welcome to the debate from GiltEdge.uk. Before we begin, this content is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always do your own research and consider seeking independent financial advice before making any investment decisions. Your capital is at risk. Today, The Guardian and the Challenger go head-to-head on £270,000 for a roof over your head. Why buying still beats renting in 2026. Let's get into it.
The average UK home costs £270,000 and the average rent is £1,368 a month. Only one of those builds you an asset, and it's not the rent check.
And only one of them locks you into 25 years of debt, strips your career flexibility, and costs far more than most people realise once you add up all the hidden expenses.
Hidden expenses like what? Stamp duty? That's a one-off cost. Meanwhile, renters are paying £1,368 every single month with absolutely nothing to show for it at the end.
Nothing to show for it. You get a roof over your head and the freedom to move when you want. But let's talk about those hidden costs: maintenance, insurance, service charges, ground rent if you're leasehold. Exposed pipes burst on a Sunday? That's your problem now, not the landlord's.
Sure, maintenance costs money. But you're building equity with every mortgage payment. At today's average house price growth of 2.4%, that sounds modest until you do the leverage maths. On a 10% deposit, that's a 24% return on your actual cash invested.
That leverage works both ways and you know it. If prices drop even 5%, you've just lost half your deposit in real terms. And that £27,000 deposit sitting in a global index fund averaging 7 to 8% a year? That's compounding without the stress of a boiler breaking down.
Except renters don't actually invest the difference, do they? That's a beautiful theory that almost nobody follows through on. In practice, the mortgage is a forced savings mechanism.
That's a fair point. Discipline matters. But it's an argument for setting up a standing order into an ISA, not for taking on the biggest debt of your life.
Here's the thing though, mortgage rates are falling. If you lock in now, your housing cost is fixed for 2 or 5 years. Renters? They're at the mercy of a landlord who can hike the rent every 12 months.
Mortgage rates are falling from historically high levels. The average 2-year fix is still above 5%. And when your fix ends, you're remortgaging into whatever the market gives you. That's not the certainty you're selling.
It's more certainty than renters have. Private rents rose 9% last year alone. At least with a mortgage, the principal repayment stays constant. You're chipping away at the debt regardless of what rates do.
But that assumes you can actually get on the ladder. The average first-time buyer needs a £27,000 deposit minimum, and that's outside London. In London you're looking at £55,000 or more. For a lot of people, buying isn't a choice they're refusing, it's a choice they literally cannot make.
I completely agree that affordability is brutal right now. But that's an argument for better policy, not for celebrating renting as some kind of lifestyle upgrade.
I'm not celebrating it. I'm saying that for people who can't comfortably afford to buy, renting and investing the difference is a legitimate financial strategy, not a consolation prize.
Let me bring up something people don't talk about enough: security. Owning your home means no Section 21 notices, no landlord selling up, no being forced to move your kids out of their school catchment area. That psychological stability has real value.
It does, I'll give you that. The Renters' Rights Bill should help, but yes, security of tenure is genuinely better for owners. That's an emotional argument I respect.
It's not just emotional. Stability lets you plan your life. You can renovate, put down roots, build community. Try doing that when your landlord might sell in 6 months.
But stability can become a trap. What happens when a better job comes up 200 miles away? A renter gives notice and moves. A homeowner has to sell, pay estate agent fees, pay solicitor fees, maybe eat a loss if the market's dipped. Flexibility has financial value too.
How often does the average person actually relocate for work though? Most people live within 20 miles of where they grew up. The flexibility argument is real for a small number of people and theoretical for most.
That's partly because they're trapped by their mortgage. The causation might run the other way. But look, I'll concede this: if you're settled, if you're planning to stay 5+ years, if you can genuinely afford the deposit without gutting your emergency fund, buying can make sense.
That's basically what I'm saying. And I'll concede this: if buying means stretching to the absolute limit with no savings buffer, you're setting yourself up for disaster. The buy side needs to get it right or not do it at all.
See, we agree more than we disagree. My issue isn't with home ownership, it's with the cultural pressure that makes people buy before they're ready and then spend a decade house poor.
And my issue isn't with renting, it's with people pretending that paying someone else's mortgage forever is somehow the smarter financial move. For most people, over a 10 to 15-year horizon, ownership wins.
Over 15 years, maybe. But the first 5 years of a mortgage, most of your payment is interest, you're barely building equity. If you sell before year 7 or 8, you've probably lost money after transaction costs.
Which is exactly why I say plan to stay. Buy somewhere you'll be happy for a decade, and the maths works overwhelmingly in your favor.
And if your circumstances change in year 3, life doesn't always cooperate with spreadsheets.
Life doesn't cooperate with rent increases either. At least when life surprises a homeowner, they have an asset to fall back on.
An illiquid asset that takes months to sell and costs thousands in fees. But I think we've drawn our battle lines. My final point is this: renting is not failure, and the best financial decision is the one that matches your actual life, not someone else's idea of what adulthood looks like.
And my final point, at £1,368 a month going to someone else's wealth, every year you delay buying when you could afford to is a year of equity you'll never get back.
The Guardian, The Challenger, thank you both. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Read both articles in full at gilt-edge.uk. Thanks for listening to the debate.